Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 37 of Horsin Around right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, along with co-host Pete Visco from the East Coast of Maryland, and many others are going to be joining us. As tonight, we are very excited, Pete, and in fact, let me go full screen here with both of us. We are very excited to announce to the world our podcast 2025 Kentucky Derby horse right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am very excited to talk about that particular horse and a few other things, not only Pete, but a few other hosts and co-hosts, and I believe a special guest as well will be joining us. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, hit the notification bell on the top right-hand side of the screen, and smash that like button below the video player, that thumbs up button. We'd greatly appreciate it. We also want to hear a lot of comments in the chat tonight, and also comment down below the video player on YouTube, especially if you're going to be watching or listening to this as a replay. Speaking of listening, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Tip sheet had an 8-1 shot, lost a nose to a risk it at 9-2, a real brutal beat there over the weekend, but had a nice score on Verstappen and some other nice plays. And Pete had some nice scores as well that he gave out not only on the show, but of course also on X with his Pete's Picks grid. So very exciting. We got a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Pete, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm excited. I'm very excited to talk about my horse, our horse. It's a little bit different this year, as not everyone knows. We'll talk about a little more in detail tonight, but there are some changes with the odds and the way they're doing things this year, and so the future Derby bet is already in. I've made it. I could not make it nearly as large as I want to this year, so yourself and the other podcast hosts and co-hosts, up to you guys if you want a piece of this horse or not. You can certainly bet it on your own. We're going to be talking about that, obviously, as I go back to our normal screen there, because, we made our bet last year. We're going to talk about it in details. We made our bet last year through Caesars. I made it again through Caesars this year, but they changed their ways, Pete. Let's just put it that way. So a little unfortunate, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, what are you going to do? They don't like to give too much advantage to the bettors, so they're going to do whatever they can to figure that out. And maybe that was, maybe they were scared of all the money we were going to win last year, and they didn't want that to happen again.
Well, I got to tell you, people can laugh about that, and I don't have any proof, but based on the changes they made, Pete, and I talked to Matt Miller about this extensively, it sure looks like that happened because, look, no one wants to be out for $151,000. I mean, I don't care if you're a $1 billion casino industry or whatever, right? Someone gets fired when the casino owns someone $151,000 because they gave the odds that were too high. Let's just face it. So,
well, and they probably it was more of experimental, and they see, oh man, look, there was a pretty good horse who we had 150. How about we just don't put any of them really that high, because you just never know. Because, I mean, it's so volatile, and we'll get into all that stuff, but it's so volatile that why jack it too high? If people are going to bet it, they're going to bet it. It's not like they're making crap loads of money off this bet. So it's just something else to suck people into.
I would agree. Paul Halloran was in the green room, but he is not there right now, so he'll be on just a minute. Here's Paul. Paul, you ready? Give me a thumbs up. Paul, you all ready to go there in the background? Paul's all ready. Let's bring on from the Saratoga Special in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. Paul, how you doing tonight?
I didn't miss the big reveal, did I?
You did not. We were discussing how Caesars has changed their ways, and I think we gave a little influence last year. They don't want to be out for $151,000 this year.
Yeah, well, that's good. So I hope the Lions win the Super Bowl, because they're all going to take a bath if the Lions win the Super Bowl. The guy from MGM was quoted, I saw an online thing, that if the Lions win the Super Bowl, it will be a, quote, serious problem for us.
Wow. Okay. Well, I got to be honest, I don't feel too bad for them. They've got a little money in the coffers. We got a lot of people in the chat. Michael Austin, I hope they chose, meaning us, an unraced horse that no one knows about, and not Barnes. Well, no, we did not do that, Michael. Barnes debuting Wednesday. We talked about that. We got Terry Frankus here. What's up, Terry? Paul Collin is here. What's up, Paul? We got a lot of people in the chat. A lot of people are excited. TC Markham. Paul, thoughts? Derby future bets are folly.
Well, I mean, folly might be a tad strong, but they're not
Sensible.
what you would call good bets. Yeah, there you go, Pete. And that's why what you were able to do the last 2 years, Howard, is all the more impressive. But we've talked many times especially now. I mean, it's one thing if you bet, if you bet a horse in February, he's got one more start, but in November, who the hell knows who's getting in the gate? But having said that, they're a lot of fun, right? If
I think it's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
look, if you want to say it's folly, look, you do whatever you want your money. I don't think any of us
Right.
thought it was folly last year when you guys
Right.
were seriously alive for 7,500 each, and I was alive to 53K. I mean, really live, So I don't think it was folly then. It was getting pretty
I agree.
serious at that point, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you need a lot of luck to get there, whatever. But if you don't want to bet it, that's fine. Do whatever you want. It's your money, right? We talk about this all the time. All right, guys, let's get into it. So, because I want to keep this about 45 minutes. I got a lot to talk about. We do have a special guest coming on very soon. He's getting himself ready in the background there to talk about odds in particular, and I'll bring him on early if he chooses. So, guys, I have a list of about 5 or 6 things I want to discuss about this horse and why I chose it, how I chose it, details, because I gotta be honest, I'm gonna guess, unless you're a real hardcore every day or for sure every weekend better, you really, you read the news, you pay attention a lot. I'm gonna guess, guys, 75-80% of the people watching and listening to the show have not heard about this horse. Maybe they've seen this name in the future Derby, Ante-Post Bet, but I think most people don't know too much about this horse for the simple fact that he's only had one lifetime start, and he's bit, I don't know about under the radar, but I mean he's really not made himself any kind of national headline yet. Matt, I see Matt Miller is in the background. Matt, give me a thumbs up if you want to come on now, or you want to. All right, we're going to bring him on right now. A little preemptive strike here from a gentleman who is a not only great friend of mine, but an author. We have 2 authors on the show. Let's bring him on. Matt Miller, how you doing tonight, Matt?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Pete. We finished up dinner a little early, and rather than just watch the show on YouTube, I figured I'd sit here from this perspective. So keep going.
Terrific. Well, you're just in time for our reveal, Matt. So everyone strap it in because here we go. So I spent a long time trying to figure out who to play this year. I did a lot of research. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by that. Caesars listed about 75 horses, guys, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And that's pretty much where I sort of started my process. I always like to make this bet around early November to mid-November. I like to make it before Thanksgiving Day stakes, guys, because there's big stakes coming up here this weekend in Kentucky. And then, of course, you have the Remsen in New York in 2 weeks. And just, once these horses are exposed, guys, you just don't get the odds that you want. And we've talked about this before. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. I'm going to bring it on screen here in just a second. The 2025 Kentucky Derby future horse that we are betting for the podcast is Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Uncle Jim is a colt by City of Light out of the Tis Now mare. Now, trained by a gentleman who's pretty talented. His name is Brad Cox. You see the ownership, Paul. You're interested in the ownership for sure. Mr. Robert LaPenta and Madaket Stables, Sal Kuhlman. Let me go full screen. He was foaled in March of 2022. He has made 1 start this year. He won that start at Keeneland. We'll show the replay and get into details. And before we go any further, Pete and Paul, let me ask you guys first, are you familiar with this horse at all? Do you happen to see him run at Keeneland? Because he broke his maiden at Keeneland. Do you know anything about this horse? And if the answer is no, that's completely acceptable. I'll tell you what you guys do know. You do know about Brad Cox.
Yeah, that helps. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, no, I went back and I've seen the Kingdom race now. I mean, I had the ability to kind of know what direction my dear uncle was heading in. So, yeah, Brad is, Brad, you can make an argument that he should have won a Derby. Essential Quality ran a very unlucky third in the Derby and went on to win the Belmont. And he's one of those guys who's going to win another one, I guess you'd say, right? Didn't he win one with Mandaloon technically?
Technically, no.
No, technically yes.
Technically, yes.
Well, yes, I guess so. Go ahead, yeah. Right.
Technically yes, but not across the line first.
Right.
He's in the Belmont club for different reasons. So Brad is. I got to tell you, I don't dislike Florent Giroux, but do I want him on my Derby horse? No. So let's see what happens with that.
Here we go already from Katie. Uncle Jim, huh? Look, everyone. There's a lot of things that go in this decision. We're gonna talk about it. Let me go ahead, and talk. Let me show his one line past performance, guys, and then I'll get into some reasons why. Although, to be honest, we did talk last week, Matt, about some reasons why. If you remember last year, you were on the show. We talked about how actually a lot of Derby horses don't have a lot of starts before their 3-year-old season, how a lot of them don't run in the Breeders' Cup juvenile either. There's just a lot of interesting facts that are out there. Let me go ahead and show everyone his one race record. I'm getting it up on the screen. Again, he ran in, there we go. I think that's pretty good right there. He ran at Keeneland. Here it is, guys. That's not it. Sorry about that. He ran at Keeneland there we go. He ran at Keeneland on October 17th. If you look carefully, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see an asterisk right by the 7 furlong. That's an about 7 furlong. It's a little bit longer than 7 furlongs. You see he won well. He won by 3 lengths. He got a 63 buyer, and here comes the hate, Pete. We'll talk about it a little bit. You got a 63 buyer. It's pretty low, obviously, correct? 90 time form, however, 90 time form, which does equate a little more to like a 70 buyer if you believe in the 20-point subtraction from there. You can see it was a big field of 11 guys, and he was 6-5 as a first-time starter in a field of 11. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the breeding before I show the replay. So let me just do that next, and of course we'll get all your guys' opinions on everything. And I have some very interesting information on this horse. I'm going to take us off the screen, guys. Bear with me for just a minute or two. Uncle Jim is by City of Light. Okay, guys, who's City of Light? City of Light is a very talented sire. He's in his 3rd year, guys. And who are some horses that City of Light has as siblings? I'll show you right now. Actually, progeny, not siblings, excuse me. It's going to take a minute on the screen. So City of Light himself, guys, won $5.6 million. This is the sire of Uncle Jim, $5.6 million. And what did he do? Well, let's see. He won the Pegasus. That's pretty good. He won the Breeders' Cup Mile, and he did it really, really well. That was only a mile race. 2nd in the Forego. 3rd in the, let me make this bigger, guys. 3rd in the Santa Anita Gold Cup, which I think that's a mile. Let me switch that. I think that's a mile and 1/8. I could be wrong about that.
Yes.
Let's see here. Oaklawn Handicap. He won that. Triple Bend, 7 furlongs, won that. Won the Malibu. I would say, to be honest, in full disclosure, his best instance, guys, was probably a mile and 1/8, mile 16th to a mile. I don't, he never really tried. I don't think he tried a mile and a quarter. Now that I look at it, he did not. But guys, he's had some pretty good results in terms of progeny. Take a look at this. A horse called Fierceness. Anyone hear of Fierceness? He's by City of Light. Chop Chop, guys, can run all day. He's a graded stakes turf horse. Formidable Man is a nice horse. Battle of Normandy is a nice turf horse, goes 2 turns. So, by the way, in terms of more maybe 2-year-olds, maybe a horse named Mentee, who is, fast. So look, guys, City of Light is a younger sire, right? Only in his 3rd year, but Pete, Paul, and Matt, he's already had some very nice progeny, and I just don't. We'll get to the dam side. There's nothing wrong with going the younger sire, in my opinion, and in this bet.
No,
Any
I
thoughts,
don't think
guys?
so. No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a crapshoot, the Derby. So there's so many things to go on, and there's so many factors to consider, and you see, you don't want this horse to run like Fierceness did in the Derby, but we obviously know Fierceness can get the distance. So if you have a top end, whether it's a top end horse like that, and you're going to talk about the dam side at a Tisnow eventually. There's probably some stamina there, and we like when the stamina comes on the dam side anyway. So I'm not too concerned about that.
Yeah, the dam is very important to me, guys. I think it's important breeding. So let's talk about the dam. Now. All right. Now only had 2 lifetime starts and did not win. I think, guys, that's part of the reason why this horse cost $240. $240K, by most people, like, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's a nice purchase price, but that's nothing spectacular, right? I would consider that more bargain. City of Light it has a stud fee, guys, of $35K. So Matt, this was 7 times the stud fee, okay, which I consider pretty good. And Matt, I think it'd be fair to say you're not exactly someone who studies pedigree, but you are someone that understands the numbers and betting for sure. I don't think people like Robert LaPenta and Madacat Stables and Sal Kuhlman are going to spend $240 in a Keeneland September sale on a horse they don't think could run.
No, I totally agree. And I totally agree as to why the purchase price got to where it got. And without being too much of a smartass, once these horses run a few times, the way I like to joke about it is every single time a horse runs, it had the same parents. So with 2 amazing parents, once it's 0 for 8, it sucks. The fact that it had amazing parents all 8 times, it doesn't make so. It very clearly to me, I'd much rather see what's happening on the track versus what I'm looking at in the pedigree sheets.
Well, I agree with you, Matt. Now, little information on now for everyone. Now, here's another thing that struck me, guys. And like I said, I don't pick these horses willy-nilly. It doesn't mean this horse is going to go to the Derby or win the Derby, but, I got to do my research. Paul, you'd be interested in this, especially because the Godolphin connection. Guess who now the dam was bred to this year? What sire? You want to take a wild stab? It's a new sire for Godolphin, Paul. That's a big hint.
Was it Cody's Wish?
No.
Was it
who's in their new crop? Who's in their new sire crop
this
year?
2 stalls down from Cody's Wish.
Brendan Walsh trained.
Yeah,
this horse.
Maxfield.
Now, guys, was bred to Maxfield this year. That gives me a lot of confidence because Maxfield was a really nice horse, right? So that tells me that they think this dam could be very nice in the breeding shed. Now, the second family of now, guys, I'll go ahead and show now. The second family, Tisnow, one of my favorite horses of all time, 2-time Breeders' Cup Classic winner, California bred, who has pedigree all over the place, guys. And the dam, so the grand dam of Uncle Jim, is Listen Now. Who's Listen Now? Listen Now is the mother of the Grade 1 winner La Coronel and some other nice horses. So, guys, the second family is very distance pedigree and talented. To me, that offsets a little bit of the dam. Now, Sierra Leone had a dam that was a Grade 3 winner and was more established. I think that's part of the purchase price. Where's Noah Maher? We need to get someone with pedigree or bloodstock knowledge. But Paul and Pete, I would assume because the dam matters, that's a big difference as why this horse didn't cost $1 million versus $240, I would think.
Well, I would say this: the dam has 6 foals on the ground prior to this year, and only one multiple winner, a horse called Murray. So yes. I think that's what that is probably what affects the purchase price. That the dam's progeny, the dam's offspring thus far have not done much. Murray's a decent horse, won 180,000, but there's an unraced Frosted, an 0 for 3 Gun Runner, a 1 for 5 Chaotic, an unraced Train Station, who's a 3-year-old, might still run, and Uncle Jim. So I think that's what explains the purchase price.
Yeah,
and the fact, as you said, City of Light, who's had some success, but still only his 3rd crop.
Well, you can make the argument that that's. You can make the argument. Sorry, Pete. You can make the argument that's pretty impressive then that he cost 240, right? I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead. I know what
No,
you're
I agree with you because I was going to say City of Light hadn't really become much of a sire at that point either.
Correct.
So I think City of Light now is probably more well thought of than then.
Oh,
So
for
you might have
sure.
even gotten a bigger one. So yeah, I think that whole it's just a big combination of, and again, it's not like the horse cost $5,000. I mean, still 240 is
No.
solid enough. So I think it's a combination of factors that maybe drove the price down a little bit, which is good because it wasn't one of those horses who stick out from the sales. It wasn't one of those
Yeah.
$1 million purchases that's going to get bet based on nothing. So you kind of like that if you're looking for a price this early.
I agree. And look, you guys see what they do on the track, right, guys? So let's get to that. Let's show the. I think we're done with the pedigree conversation in general. By the way, there was Secretariat on the dam side. I don't know if we know. There's a lot of distance. You know, I like Matt. The dam matters a lot. I like that City of Light is more precocious and showed speed. And I don't get the impression this horse can be like a dead closer like we've had in the past, which was part of the reason. I think the dam side is where the distance comes from, and the male side, obviously distance not an issue, but maybe a little more precocious, a little more forward based on City of Light, Matt.
Totally agree with that. I could make the joke that we know at least the father likes the track. Handled it perfectly. The other, I think, and maybe you're going to get to this point later, I love the fact that this pick is out of the Brad Cox barn. Clearly, that is the hot barn right now, at least relative to how it's been or whatnot. He seems pretty loaded, and so we're going to learn a lot about their intentions with this horse very quickly, because as we've seen with Bafferts and whatnot, the ones that he's targeting that he thinks the most of tend to get the best spots. And so we're going to learn a lot about this horse quickly.
Yes. And I'm gonna talk about that. Let's watch the replay. And we thank everyone for watching. We got a ton of people watching. Love to have your comments. If you think this is a ridiculous pick, absolutely. By all means, you can poo-poo me, as Pete says, all you want. That's completely fine. I would just keep in mind the last 2 years, where's Tapatrice and Sierra Leone that I gave out. Doesn't mean this horse is going to work out, but we'll see what happens, guys. Now, the replay, and everyone knows, if you've been paying attention to this show or to me at all, that I'm looking for horses. So what am I looking for in a horse in general, guys? In a Derby future, I'm looking for a horse that started longer than 6 furlongs in his debut, very lightly raced, and did not race in the Breeders' Cup, has a talented trainer and pedigree. That's about a 10-second synopsis of what I'm looking for. And Pete and Paul, we talked about this. I don't care if the horse ran an 85 buyer. In fact, I'm negative to those horses. I do not want a horse, guys, who I think is going to win the 1.25 mile Kentucky Derby, who won his debut going 5.5 furlongs on the lead and got an 85 buyer. Those horses are not meant for the Kentucky Derby. You can go back and look at it in general. So let's go ahead and watch the replay, guys. He's the number 3 in this race, and we'll break it down. He breaks fine. He wins this race. I'm going to let you guys talk about what you see, as if you hadn't really seen the horse run. Again, he's on the 3. He breaks fine. This is about 7 furlongs. He does save ground, but I'll tell you what I like a lot as you guys comment over the video here. I like that he took a lot of dirt. I like that he was inside, didn't seem to be bothered by that. And this is just ultra professional, if not lightning fast. Paul, I'll let you talk first. He's the 3 here.
Yeah, it's not an ideal spot for a first-time starter, not only being down inside, but being inside with that many horses, both in the race and in front of you. Now, Giroux right here is in no hurry, obviously, and is thinking, if he's going to have to make a decision based on what these 2 in front of him do. Unfortunately, you just saw the 5 there drift a little bit to the outside. And I think at this point, Howard, for a first start, Giroux is saying, okay, here I am. You see right now he's
loaded, Paul.
He's loaded now. He just needs room, and there's not a lot of it. I honestly think his preference was going to be to stay on the rail, and you'll see he gets right back on it here. And this is the impressive move for a first-time starter. Yes, he did have clear sailing up the rail, but again, first time out, first time taking dirt, and did it the right way, and he is extending at the end. So that is a very good first time effort.
Pete, completely under wraps right there. And again, let me go back, Pete, because on the turn, he was loaded, and I just like the fact that he was so professional, Pete. This reminds me a lot of Sierra Leone. We're going to show the Sierra Leone replay, the not the Derby, but Pete, he could have checked right here, right? If the horse was immature or whatever, he could have checked. He could have a lot of problems. But Drew just was very patient. Yes, he saved ground. Yes, he found room. And once he went to the stick, Pete, and pushed the button, I thought it was, I don't know about instantaneous, but it was pretty quickly he gained on this leader here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a few things you like when you're talking about a young horse. Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. A lot of horses can just go to the top and do nothing except just be faster than the rest of the field. And we see that. And then sometimes those are the horses that don't run as well in that second and third start when things don't go as easily. This one I like because, again, it was, yeah, you saved ground, but you still were behind horses. So that's one thing you like. You like anytime a young horse can pass horses and pass a bunch of horses and not just pass like 150 to one shot, but actually make a move around many horses. You talk about all the time it being in between horses. Sometimes I think that's a little overstated, but a lot of times with the young ones, they don't like that, and that freaks them out a bit. And then going up the rail, it wasn't a tight squeeze, but like Paul mentioned, going up the rail isn't even always the easiest thing for a young horse. So there were a lot of nice things that you like, the professionalism, and just the fact that it wasn't, hey, I'm just going to jump on the lead. I have the best horse. I'm going to run away from them. I like this because this sets you up for a real race and not just some, 6-horse get on the top and just go in a merry-go-round kind of race.
There was a lot of kickback on this day. I thought for whatever reason, I don't know if you could see on the pan, you could see in the background, this is more kickback than normal at Keeneland, and he just seemed to take it just fine, Pete. I mean, he didn't.
Yeah,
he never the kick. He never steadied.
No,
he never
no.
And he can't. That's a decent amount of kickback that he's taking. And Giroux knew he had a ton. The fact that Cox debuted this horse at about 7, which is the longest they debuted 2-year-olds on the dirt. There are no 2-year-old races at Keeneland. And here he's splitting here without any problem. They just rode the shadow. By the way, Matt, left-handed, as straight as an arrow, and you're shaking your head because we've had a horse all over the place. This horse didn't move a muscle off this line. I like that a lot, Matt.
That was one of the first things I was looking for. I was thrilled to see him bumping into no other horses, having no interest in coming together with anybody. Just ran his race, a nice straight line. It looked terrific, and I agree with all the other comments. I wouldn't go so far as to say the horse faced major adversity, but this wasn't the easiest race to get through in a first start, and with some dirt in his face. That's absolutely the kind of trip a horse like this could get in the Derby one day.
What a beautiful ride by Giroux too. I hope he's riding
really
him in the
ride.
Derby.
Well, that's someone said. I hope Giroux's on the other good Cox Admiral Dennis, who actually I like that horse. We'll talk about him in a minute, guys.
That's not the only other good Cox.
Oh no, he's got a few guys. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Paul wants to know, did anyone come out of this race and win? Okay, good point. Not yet. Now look, this was not the best field. I need to say that out front. But I've learned that doesn't really matter much. And Pete, we've talked about this ad nauseum. You can only beat who you beat. I mean, you could have won that race by another 2 or 3 lengths, I think, if he was really asking and whipping. And we could have gotten a 70 buyer and a 95 if we want to nitpick, right? I mean, he was in hand the last, 32nd of a mile, 16th of a mile. But it is fair to say, Math Tutor came out of this race and proved 18 points, guys. Master Controller came out of this race 13 points. King of Ashes, by the way, I don't know if you guys know, ran at Gulfstream yesterday and finished a very good second. The buyer is not out yet, but King of Ashes came out of the race with running a good second. So look, it wasn't the most impressive field right now, but I gotta be honest, I don't really care about that too much. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, and then we'll move on to some other things.
We always say beat the field in an impressive fashion. It doesn't matter. And then from a buyer standpoint, which is what a lot of people are going to care about, you want to see that progression in the second start because that's when it happens with 2-year-olds. And now if he's stuck in the same level. And if he runs sort of a 70-ish in that level, and again, it's not like that means everything, but you do want to see improvement from start to start if it's a horse that you're trying to get to the Derby. So we'll more weight that second one. We've seen a lot of like 60 buyers, and all of a sudden they run an 85, and now everybody likes them again. And so
interesting you're bringing that up, Pete. And Matt, I'm going to bring you in here in a second. So we're going to talk about what happened the last 2 years. We're going to talk about odds. We haven't even shown. Everyone's like, "Where's your future Derby bet?" Folks, I'm going to show everyone our bet. I haven't even told everyone what odds we got or how much we put on this horse. So I'm going to get to that. Everyone, just please be patient. Let's talk about some horses, guys. Remember these two horses? Ante-Post from 2 years ago. Take a look, and Pete, you just mentioned this. Take a look at Ante-Post. He had a 73. Should I go full screen? Do you guys? Let me go a little bigger just with the PPs here. Ante-Post, guys, 73 buyer. Okay, first out, and then he jumped to an 87. By the way, when did Ante-Post debut? November 6th in a mile race at Aqueduct. Ante-Post has won $1.7 million. Guys, we all know what happened. He was just too goofy for his own good. He was very long striding. He just wasn't good enough for the Derby, but he was he was 9-2.
Yeah, it was
in
9-2.
the Derby.
So,
okay, 73 to 87, Pete, to your point, right? How about this horse? Last year's pick, Sierra Leone. Guys, 71 buyer for Sierra Leone in his first start. Did it very professionally. I'm not going to show the replay just because I want to move things along. And then jumped to a 91 in the Remsen, guys. And the rest is history. He's gotten better. Just, lost, obviously, heartbreaking in the Derby by a nose. But, guys, you start with a 71 buyer, right? So, Matt, these trainers, they know what they're doing. And you mentioned Brad Cox, and let's just talk about it right now. And then I'll show our Derby actual future bet and talk about odds, Matt. Brad Cox is one of the best trainers in the world. I have no doubt about it. He's going to win a Derby sooner rather than later. People might wonder, why did I go Bob Baffert? We talked about this last week. I don't want to talk about it ad nauseum. I just don't trust the Bob Baffert horses right now. It's not personal. This is strictly about quote-unquote business and money. Sure, I could have gone with the Pletcher. I could have gone with the Chad. Brad Cox is due to win one of these damn things, and I think it could happen this year.
Yeah, he's loaded. He's got, it feels like tons of these maiden special weights horses. I think I saw it in the chat. Was it Patch Adams? That's another one that I think people are expecting may come back to be something special. I know, Howard, and I don't know if you're going to get to it, you had essentially a B horse for the Derby, your Derby future as well. I think that was a Brad Cox horse also, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that was Admiral Dennis was my other horse I would have used if the odds were better, full disclosure. I also like Bullard. We talked about Bullard last week. But Bullard, we're getting the odds right now, Matt. Look, if you ask me who's going to win the Derby, I probably wouldn't say Uncle Jim. Okay? But at the odds I'm about to show, I'm not going to take a horse at anything less than 50 to 1, 50 to 1 in this Derby future. And that's an hour-long conversation that we're not going to have. But, Matt, it's one of the reasons why I have you on tonight. Look, value has to come into play in this bet, Matt. And what is this bet? Here it comes right now on the screen. The actual ticket for the future Derby bet right now through Caesars. There it is. We got 80 to 1, or I got 80 to 1 on Uncle Jim. I don't know if you can see. It's right at the bottom of the screen there. Let me bring it. Actually, I got to go one less there. It was made on November on the bottom of the screen. Made on November 16th. The maximum I could put in, ladies and gentlemen, let me repeat that. The maximum I was allowed to make was $125. That's it. Last year we put $1,000 on Sierra Leone. We talked about that last week. This was the maximum amount, Matt, that I was allowed to make on this horse without them, others that wouldn't have taken the bet at 80 to 1. Okay, what I'm alive to is whatever. It's just the fun of it is trying to find the Derby horse. I wouldn't mind 10K. There's the bet. And interesting, Matt, there's a cash out opportunity, which Caesars did not offer last year. I'm going to shut up and let you have the floor for about a minute, Matt, about what you see in front of you.
All right. So first of all, those cash outs, just don't do them. Just don't. They're terrible value almost all the time. And keep in mind, let's take your 125 to 1 from last year. The horse was still 4 to 1 or whatever in the Derby. And so the amount of the cash out wouldn't have been nearly as impressive as it felt like we had in terms of equity in the ticket. So those cash outs, I think, are a bit, I just don't think they ever quite, it's like playing Deal or No Deal and getting a shitty banker offer every single time. I'd pass on that.
Matt, let me interrupt you a second. If they offered a cash out last year, I'm just going to throw a number out there. You tell me if I'm way off. We were live to 151 to the second choice in the Derby, or some people's top choice. I got to believe Pete and Paul and Matt, they would have offered 25, maybe 30. And Matt, I would have had to strongly consider that. I don't know how you feel about that. I know it's easy to say after the fact you shouldn't, but look, you make a $300 bet, or we made $1,000 bet and could have cashed for 25 or 30x. That would have been very tempting, Matt, for the whole group. I don't know how you feel about that. And Pete and Paul, I'd love to hear your response. Let's just say 30. Let's say 30K was the number on the cash out last year, Matt.
Mostly because the Derby's a shit show that you're a little tempted because, it doesn't really, we got a horse that's going to be coming from the back. And if you can cash out for that, it's like you said, it's tempting. But I'm not saying we would do it. But Matt, I mean, I look at it as the Derby's nuts. Even if you have a low-priced odds horse, especially when you have a closer, maybe you consider it, maybe you don't. It all depends on your situation. It depends on a lot of factors too.
If you're tempted to take a shitty cash out, I'm going to get real judgmental for a second. You bet too much money. That's really the problem. Is that you put yourself in an uncomfortable position where you can't stand it, holding on to see if you win or not. And so I'd go back to your original thesis and your original action and say, why'd you bet so much if you couldn't stay with it until the end? If the cash out was super attractive, which they never are. I mean, keep in mind,
well, they're not going to give you something attractive because they also don't want they don't want to give away money at any point. So unless you got like $1 million ticket and you got some sweet cash out on some crazy thing like I need the Lions now to win the Super Bowl to close out a 4-team parlay of teams to win championships or something. Totally. That's the only time you maybe do it.
And where I distinguish this is that we knew what the amount was when we bet it. And so this isn't like a pick six where you didn't expect to hit 5 50-to-1 shots in a row and now you're on a $2 million ticket in the end. Okay, right, you got to hedge that. That was not something we expected. But when you know what the amount is in the end, I'd say you should be thinking this stuff through ahead of time. That's all.
So I want to talk about very quickly, because we talked about this last year, these completely ridiculous odds that people are actually accepting right now. And Paul, I want to bring you into this. I thought 80-to-1 was actually too low. Okay. This is very simple math. Everyone at home, you can agree or disagree with your opinion on the horse. But what I'm saying is simple math. Let's just say, and this was my logic, at least for the 80-to-1. I'm giving Uncle Jim, guys, about a 10% chance to get to the Derby. You might be like, wow, that's really low. There's only 20 runners, guys, and there's one from Japan, there's like 18 runners. So if I were to go off that logic, that's 10-to-1, I would need 8-to-1 in the Derby to justify the 80-to-1, approximately, give or take, right? So if I believe he's 10-to-1 to make, actually it says 9%. If I believe he's about 10-to-1 to get into the Derby, I would still need him to be third, fourth, fifth choice in the Derby to justify 80-to-1. And I bring that up, guys, because here are we got this, by the way, thank you very much. This is courtesy of Kevin Kirstein, guys, VP director at the Churchill Downs of media relations, excuse me. He said this is pool 2 of the Kentucky Future Derby wager that's starting this weekend, guys. This is this weekend. Anyone can bet these horses. Now the odds are going to change. This is what they are opening at in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 2 this weekend. Let's just take Chance and Patrick, 10-to-1. I mean, look, this has nothing. I'm not poo-pooing Churchill Downs, guys. I'm not saying Churchill Downs is wrong. I implore anyone out there, 10-to-1 is completely insane. I mean, Chancellor Patrick, guys, think about this, right? If you do the math, if you think he's 5-1 to make the Derby, which to me is crazy, crazy low. Let's just say you believe that. He would have to be the prohibitive favorite in the Derby at 2-1. Like prohibitive favorite. Think about that, guys. Chancellor McPatrick should be 30-1 plus for anyone to even consider betting this horse. I'll get off my high horse, guys, but people are going to bet ridiculous. East Avenue. I love East Avenue. 10-1 now? 5.5 months from the Derby? It's crazy.
Without turning this into a class on finance, if you've ever traded options or known anything about stock options, there's a few elements that comprise their value, and one of those is time. And so the longer the option survives, the more it's worth in theory. Well, it kind of works the opposite here to some degree. As time goes on, you've got a better sense of what's going on. And in many cases, you can just bet the horse in the Derby at these odds, right? It's a 20-horse race.
If you're lucky.
There's a ton of horses that go off between 15 and 100 to 1. There's a really good chance those will just be your odds. And so why limit your upside to that at this point? I think you need to have a really compelling case. Just like you've said, Howard, something that someone hasn't seen yet. I do think it's worth testing your theory for a second, putting a question back to the host. What do you do when the buyer improvement is only 8 or 12 points in the next race? How quick are you to jump at that point?
I'll let Pete and Paul answer that question. Paul, you've been pretty quiet. What's your thought on that question?
Well, I'm always pretty quiet. I never have too much to say. I wouldn't worry too much about the next race, man. I'd be more concerned with the first race of the 3-year-old campaign. I think that's a much better barometer.
Wait, hold on, Paul. Do they take their hoof and move the calendar like, oh look, it's 2025. I got to run faster now.
Well, they did on January 1st. They all do it on January 1st.
I know.
But it is a good question and a good point because horses run fewer preps now. You know, the days of 6 or 7 preps are over. You know, you're talking about, maybe 2, 3 max, but maybe only 2. So, but I would be more concerned with what happens the first one. But that is why, Howard, you have to insist on value, because all of these, if you have a 2-year-old that you think can get there, by now, or close to by now, certainly by the end of the calendar year, you've mapped out a tentative plan to get to that race, going backwards, of course. Matt, it's kind of like going backwards from the last race in the BCBC. Same thinking. And of all races, I mean, horses, remember, go to the track every day, except on days after they have a timed workout or a race, they may just walk them. But every day, for all intents and purposes, horses go to the track. And in the Derby, if you look over the years, horses that have a glitch, he missed 3 or 4 days of training, they don't win. Okay, almost without exception, which means pretty much everything has to go according to plan between now and May, whatever the hell it is, 2nd. And that's why you need value. I'm a huge East Avenue fan. At this point, I think he is definitely the most likely winner. Am I betting him at 10-1 right now? No, absolutely not. Because, if he has a real good prep and an okay prep, and, if he's 9-2 on Derby Day, well, I can just bet twice as much and end at the same result. Right.
And look, some of us make, in the book, I talk about Wheel of Fortune and blackjack. You want to make a Wheel of Fortune play just for fun. And I think that's really the way a lot of people look at these Derby future bets. They're not the best investments. They're not the best ROI. No. You want to put $2 on East Avenue at really shitty odds to say, I called the Derby horse 6 months in advance. Be my guest. Nice pick. Great job for $2. I don't care that you got shitty odds. If you're betting real money, I think the value needs to. So you've got to decide for yourself what you're trying to get out of this. And if you're really trying to get a good blend of fun and value, I think the points you guys have made are exactly right in terms of the kind of odds you need to demand. I would be ultra careful. I've just, in some of the comments I've seen in the chat, just a warning. The Derby future bets via Twin Spires are in parimutuel pools. That's really different than Caesars or a Sportsbook booking your bet, where they can give you cash out options and things like that. The risk you have with this sort of a pool is 2 minutes before the pool closing, someone like me saying, gosh, it would be fun to get in on Howard's pick, Uncle Jim, and betting a stupid amount of money on it and taking everybody else's odds down to something they wouldn't have taken. Just like the late odds changes we see at the track all day, it happens the same thing in these futures pools. So I would be careful. These odds can shift quite a bit, and you might not be too happy.
I love what Paul Weinstock says about these horses could be any kind at this stage of the game. Absolutely, Paul. I mean, the race is not for more than 5 months, guys. I want to talk about workouts real quick, and then we'll start wrapping up the show. And I think it was Matt or Paul said, where they're going to go in the future with him. I have some thoughts, and I just want to mention that too. So, guys, one of the things I do if I can is see who the trainer is pairing up these horses with in workouts, because I think that matters a lot. Right? I mean, if he's paired up with a donkey, then that's a big problem. So this is courtesy of KentuckyBred.org. This is a work. I'm not going to show the whole workout. Guys, Uncle Jim's on the outside of Patch Adams. Patch Adams is a very, very highly regarded horse for Brad Cox. Here's Uncle Jim right here. I'm not going to show the whole replay work, but Patch Adams on the inside. He basically works even with Patch Adams. And I got to say, just on the visual, he looks bigger and taller and more longer striding. Uncle Jim is right here. I know Patch Adams is in front of him, but they basically went the same distance here and the same thing. So anyway, that was a while ago, guys. That was October with Patch Adams. Then a week later, here's Admiral Dennis, who I like a lot. Admiral Dennis was on the outside. Uncle Jim's on the inside, guys. Admiral Dennis broke his maiden going a mile a few weeks ago and won by like 4 lengths and did it very well. This horse on the outside is supposedly further ahead in theory than Uncle Jim in terms of his progression. Admiral Dennis is a constitution, guys, and another horse I like a lot, but the odds were too low. Here's Uncle Jim right here. I think he outworked Admiral Dennis in this work, in my opinion, and never let Admiral Dennis right here get in front of him on the gallop out. Again, here's Uncle Jim on the inside. I just like the way he moves, guys, and I like when horses don't want other horses to pass you. I think that's a very important aspect. The other one I'll show you real quick, guys, the last workout. This was only about 2 weeks ago. Uncle Jim is on the outside. Scorpius is on the inside. Scorpius is a maiden runner for Cox who ran on the turf and finished a good like 3rd or 4th a few at Keeneland. Again, Scorpius is here. Here's Uncle Jim, guys. Look at this hold. He's got a monster hold. This is a decent Brad Cox maiden horse on the inside. It looked like he can go by anytime he wanted. He does go by here on the gallop out. Let me show a little bit here. He's going to go by on the gallop out. Again, it just works. But you see when he asks a little bit, he strides out. He goes ahead. I like that a lot, guys. So the last thing I will say, Paul, hold on a second. Uncle Jim was supposed to run, guys, last week. He was scratched out of an allowance race. It was a vet scratch sick. That was a small concern to me. However, what happened this past weekend, Uncle Jim was best out of 45, guys. A bullet work Saturday morning at Keeneland in 59 and change at a horse named Hit Show. You know that horse? Hit Show for Brad Cox, a older grade stakes runner, worked in 1:03, and Uncle Jim worked in 59 and change this Saturday. Paul, go ahead.
One thing on those 3 workouts you showed, Howard, that I think is worth noting, if I'm not mistaken, Those were 4 furlong works that I believe he started from the 3/8 pole. So when you say the gallop out does not start at the finish line. A lot of trainers will work the horse to the next pole, and that is solely intended to get the horse used to finishing and not just, uh, just trying to get to the finish line. So I believe all 3 works you showed were they broke off at the 3/8 pole and they went 4 furlongs, which is they went around another eighth of a mile and then the gallop out starts. That's a common thing that trainers will do, and I think especially with young horses to get them going not just to the finish line but through the finish line.
Thank you for mentioning that. And go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
So,
We can go a little later. It's okay as long as you guys are okay. Another 10 minutes maybe or so.
well, and I'm a little bit changing topics, so I want to make sure you were done with that. But one topic I thought would be interesting for listeners was just the act of getting this bet down this year. For those of you who don't bet online, whether usually sports is what I'm talking about, if you were to put in an unusually large sports bet on an app like Caesars, you will sometimes get this weird looking message that seems fake but isn't, that says your bet is being referred to a specialist for consideration. Hold on for 70 seconds or up to 70 seconds. All right, I've done this a few times where it was a baseball bet. It wasn't that big, and I was a little surprised it triggered it, but okay. And almost instantly it comes back and says, yeah, no problem. I don't know I'm telling this third hand or whatever, but when we tried putting in a bigger bet on Uncle Jim, it came back with that message of death saying, hold on a second, someone's looking. And when they came back, it was in fact a much lower number than we had put in for. And so, I would say just to listeners in general, you've got a couple of choices in terms of how to get money down on these horses. The Kentucky Derby futures pools are obviously the easiest to access. We see them on our ADWs. They do carry with them the pari-mutuel pool risks that we talked about before. But I would say if you can get to Caesars or whoever takes action on Kentucky Derby futures, ask around, get 6 buddies to make the bet and buy all 6 of them. I'm also not joking, Howard. I don't think you'd mind me saying it. If any one of the listeners here is able to find a book that can get meaningful money down on this horse, we're interested. We weren't able to get much this time, so
I got some bad news for you, Matt. Well, first of all, our bet was made through someone who lives in Vegas. If you want to bet Caesars, you have to be in Vegas and have their app. So you can't just go online and bet it if you live outside of Nevada, not just Vegas, but in Nevada. So we made our bet through someone who lives in Las Vegas. Just let everyone know that. What are the odds right now? You guys like to know? So right now, we got 80-1.
What were the odds 2 seconds after you made your bet?
Pete and Paul, immediately after I made my bet, they pushed it down to 50-1 immediately. So it went from 80 to 50 immediately on Uncle Jim. It did push back up to 66-1 about a week and a half later. So about a week and a half ago. Right now, I called our guys this morning. Uncle Jim right now at Caesars is 30-1 in their future play. 30.
We need a new pick.
Now, I don't know what he's going to be this weekend. I'm going to pay attention, obviously. I got a feeling that 50-1 morning line, Pete, that the Kentucky Derby future wager through Twin Spires, it's going to be much lower than that at the end of this weekend. I got a feeling.
Yeah, but it's nice because it makes you feel good that you got the value early. So you look at that and go, you see 50 there, you see whatever it is at Caesars. And like Matt mentioned, how pissed are you if you're like, well, you know what, I'll just wait till pool 2. And then you put it in at 50. You think you put it in Friday when it opens at 50 and it comes Sunday afternoon and now it's 25 for some reason. And now you're really pissed because now you lost all that value and you didn't even know you were losing it at the time. And again, Matt, I think that's a good point because I don't know if people not everyone bets futures. They don't necessarily know how the pools work. So like you said, don't think you're getting 50 when you put the bet down. You got to check back Sunday and then it locks in. But yeah, take whatever option you can. But that's why you almost start higher because they're going to lose value. If you have a horse that starts running well, even in that second start, that value is going to plummet immediately. So You don't want a horse that runs like shit the next 2 times out, because that's usually not a good sign for a rising horse for the Derby. So
No.
generally the good horses go this way and not this way.
We have several hundred people watching. Thanks again. Again, look below our video player for tip sheet information. We have a Power Picks tip sheet. I'm going to talk about the Kentucky Derby on our tip sheets in 2025. Pete has a great website for the podcast, hhhracingpodcast.com. Look, guys, the thing about the Kentucky Derby future wager, and I support Twin Spires, and I appreciate them in this show because they've allowed us to go to the Derby on credentials and other things. Guys, if you're going to bet through this, do not bet it on Friday. You have to wait. You have to wait. I don't know when the deadline is, Paul. I should have looked it up. That's a host fail. I think it's Sunday at 5, but it might be Saturday before the big races at Churchill because they've got a big 2-year-old stake.
It'll be open more than 2 days. It'll be
Sunday, right?
Yeah,
it's usually Sunday, like 5 o'clock Central or 6 o'clock Eastern. But I mean, Matt, you can't make this bet on Friday. Like you said, it could change dramatically.
Who bets the 8th race when they're making their bets for the first race? Like, that's ridiculous. Just wait.
Right.
I don't know that you need to be truly last second.
No.
I'm not really worried about the CAWs coming into a pool like this or whatever, but
No.
But I would wait until the action is done and see where the odds settle out, and I would wait until a few minutes before the thing closes to at least get a sense. You just don't want to feel silly.
Terry's worried that the word that's. Well, Terry, I'll tell you what. I appreciate that. I don't think we're gonna have that much effect on it, but I don't know. Who knows? Tom wants to know. Tom, I was not able to make multiple bets at 120. Well, actually, Tom, let me answer this question. I was, but then I would have gone 50-1. Probably. And I'm not gonna do that, Tom. I'm not gonna play their game.
And then 30.
Yeah, then it keeps going down. I'm not gonna do that. Guys, let's wrap up the show. Where do you go next?
Quick, can I say one thing?
Please.
City of Light is actually 50-1 in the Sire. So that's a funny one because now you're at least getting multiple horses for the same odds. Go ahead, Matt. You got something on that.
Can you read that below? Matt, can you read below real quick from Tom?
Kentucky Derby website says 6 p.m. Eastern Sunday. Presumably that's to close.
Thank you
all.
all.
I'm going to see you next week.
And that is November 30. December 1st for people that are listening. Yes, go ahead, Matt.
But this bet was available last year and was one of. I lost, but it was a sneaky way of playing. I remember when you picked Sierra Leone, you also. I hope I'm not getting my facts wrong. I think you was Locked trained by Chad Brown also?
No, Locked is Pletcher.
Right, so
I did like Locked.
You had a second horse that you also liked.
I did.
So I decided to play at the trainer angle. And you might end up, Pete, that's a great point, 50-1 or the sire angle. So there are different ways to make these bets. And 50-1 on City of Light, okay, clearly, at least at this juncture, as we think, Uncle Jim is probably contributing the most to that 50-1, but there could be 10 others that might be just as good or whatnot. So I think the point on the betting and the reason I'm here, be creative. When you're looking at 30-1 in the futures pool, that's crazy. Depending on the way you bet, you might be able to get that in the next race if you play doubles or exactas or whatever. And so you might be able to take this futures pick and find ways to profit off of it a little earlier in the season rather than just the one big bet way in advance for the Derby.
So, guys, last comment, and then if you guys need to leave, we're only going to 5 more minutes here. Where do you go next? Uncle Jim is nominated to the Remsen. Sounds like a familiar path. I don't know if he's going. Admiral Dennis for Cox is also nominated to the Remsen, which is in 2 weeks. It is the December 7th at Aqueduct, a mile and 8th. Where else you could go, Pete and Paul? The Springboard Mile in Remington is a nice little 1 mile. I think there's Derby points. I'm not sure. That is on December. That's Friday, December 13th at Remington. I think the more likely spot for Uncle Jim, if it's not the Remsen and it's not an allowance race. And by the way, if he points into an allowance race, I'm fine with that. He doesn't need to get Derby points right now. The Gun Runner, which is the first Fairgrounds 2-turn race, guys, on their road to the Derby. The Gun Runner at Fairgrounds is December 21st. It's a mile and a 16th. I don't know where Cox is going with Uncle Jim. It's going to be either Oaklawn or Fairgrounds. Any final thoughts, specifically on Peter or Paul, on where you would like, if you had a future bet on this horse, would you care if he was in a stake or an allowance race next? And if you prefer a stake, would you have a preference of any of those three I mentioned, or rest them longer and wait until the new year?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'm not looking to go to the Kentucky Derby through Oklahoma. No disrespect to our friends at Remington. So you can have that race and stick it. But I would say I'm not looking for point. Depending on when he runs, I'm not. If he's running in February, then I'm looking for points. If you think he's going to run again soon, it's interesting that Cox is running neither of them in the race this Saturday.
Correct.
Obviously, Uncle Jim, I think, became not it wasn't nominated to this race when they closed. I don't know if the scratch preceded that or not. I would say the race closing probably preceded the scratch. But
yes, because he was not listed before the scratch.
He wasn't nominated. But
Admiral Dennis was nominated to this weekend's Saturday stake,
but
is not in the race. Correct.
So yeah, I mean that's that's the other challenge for these trainers now with multiple. It's nice to have multiple, but the points are at stake, so you're not going to run 4 of them in one race, unless you're Baffert in California, and that's what you do. But the one thing I would say, Howard, I know we're leaving. I'm a little interested in a horse that I bet last Saturday, who ran a hard closing second, a horse called Sea Vista, who put up a 79 buyer, is by Street Sense, who won the 2007 Derby, which was loaded. The Dam Sarah Louise was more sprinter miler, but she did run second to Rachel Alexandra at 1 mile and 16th. And the horse is a full to a horse called Fancy That, who could get 1 mile and a quarter on turf. So there.
Okay. See this. Go ahead, Matt.
So I have a question that's going to just put you on this. Well, it's not really a question. It's a request. I'm going to just put you on the spot. I don't like playing these guessing games that much. If Uncle Jim runs well in his next start, would you please get Brad Cox on this show so we can ask him these questions?
Yeah,
Paul, we did reach out. Some people asked in the chat. Go ahead, Paul. We did reach out to Brad Cox out of fairness.
Yeah, we tried to. I sent him a text. I didn't really follow up, but I'll tell you who I think we want to get Cox, but I'm fairly confident if the horse gets on the trail that we can get Mr. LaPenta at some point, Howard.
Oh, terrific.
Great. Or Sal Kuma, maybe? You met on the plane.
Bob Mullins and I did once have a shot with Bob LaPenta in his house in Connecticut when we delivered the Catholic Boy gear.
We're going to try to get Brad Cox on, Matt.
Yeah, we'll work it.
We'll do our best. Paul, Pete, quick thoughts on where you would want Uncle Jim or any horse in this situation at this time of year to run next.
Yeah, I don't really know, because I don't think it necessarily matters. I always enjoy the Oaklawn path, and we know Cox has gone that way, but I look at it like, I think I'm with Paul. If you're going to go for points, get some points. If you wait till February, put yourself in a race where you're going to get points. They're not going to knock heads. It's not like Cox's B string or anything isn't in Saturday's race. You're just going to see where you go. And a trainer like Cox, he's going to have options. It's not like you have a trainer with one horse and they really have to map it out. Cox is going to do it. Hey, I can go here and take this one down. I can go here and take this one down. Doesn't necessarily matter which one is which to me. He's going to put them where he thinks they're going to have the best shot.
Yeah. I will end with this, guys. I'll say 2 quick things. Well, first of all, appreciate everyone for watching and joining us with a huge, and if anyone's playing the future Derby bet and making a bet, good luck to everyone, whether you're putting in $5 or 500, whatever you're going to do. Guys, the fact that he just worked a bullet this past Saturday, they're not waiting until February. I want to see this run. I want to see this horse run in December. I got to be very honest. If he doesn't run in December, I'm not saying I'm going to be discouraged. I'm just going to sort of wonder why, because he's working fantastically right now. So maybe they want to develop him. I want to see him run in December, guys. And I got to be honest. I want to see him either in the Remsen, which would not be easy, guys, to go from 7 to 1 mile and 1/8. But if he's that talented, Brad could certainly run a horse in New York. And if not there, I think the Gun Runner at Fairgrounds is a very logical spot if they're going to train with the Fairgrounds. I don't know if it's either going to be the Fairgrounds or Oaklawn. The Smarty Jones, by the way, is the first week. I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd of January. The way this horse is working, Paul, and he's working like every week right now, boy, it feels like they want to run him again pretty soon.
Yeah, I
That's
think
just
you're
how
going
it
to see.
feels.
I would bet on the Remsen if I had if I were
I
a
would
betting
be.
man.
Remsen's a
If
mile.
he runs in the
Isn't
Remsen,
a
guys,
mile?
it's a mile
Yeah,
and
the
1/8.
Remsen's the
It's a long
Remsen.
race.
It's a mile. I'm looking at
No.
something
not-
here. Unless this is wrong, what I'm looking at.
No, the Remsen's a mile and 1/8, unless they change the distance.
I'm
I
looking at
disagree.
the.
I disagree with that.
I'm looking at the Twin Spires road to the Derby, and it says a mile. Because is that one turn at Aqueduct or two?
No.
I never remember
Yes.
what.
Yes.
It's one turn, but it's a mile and 1/8 race.
Unless
they
this is
change
what's
the
wrong.
distance.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't-
no, you're right. How it is. No, which means it's 2 turns. I don't think you.
Oh,
can
so
go a mile
this
and
is
an
wrong
eighth
then.
at
Okay,
Aqueduct.
so this,
Okay,
this website is wrong then.
And you know what? If he runs the Remsen, guys, he doesn't have to win. Like Sierra Leone blew away my expectations of Remsen, to be honest, last year. If he runs like a nice closing 3rd or 4th and gets like a nice buyer jump to like low mid 80s, guys, that'd be fine with me. I mean, really. I will close with this, and I want to be honest with everyone. I do not feel quite as good about this horse as I did with Sierra Leone and Tapit Trice. And people are like, duh. Both those horses I just mentioned were like second choice in the Derby. I just want to mention why, because I don't need any hate mail. Oh, I bet 1,000 on Uncle Jim, and he can't run. Not that I've ever given out a horse on X or on this show as a real play of the year that didn't run well. Guys, the buyer doesn't bother me. Okay, in the first race. The field was sort of small concern. The damn pedigree, small concern. The price tag that he was bought at, slight concern. You put all those threes together, I don't quite feel as good at this horse, but I love who he's been working with. I love Brad Cox. I like the breeding is good enough. And I'm a visual player, Matt, and you know that. And we all agree. I love the visual. I just love everything about what he did, and I'm getting 80-1. Would he be my top choice to win the Derby right now? No. Like, I think Bullard's more likely. I think East Avenue is more likely. But again, you're talking 20-1, 15-1 versus 80-1. Value has to come into play. Uncle Jim, trained by Brad Cox, a City of Light colt, is my Kentucky Derby future bet for 2025. Guys, final thoughts, and we'll wrap up the show. We'll just go around Pete and then Paul and Matt. Final thoughts.
I have no final thoughts on this. Go Chargers tonight. That's all I care about. Beat
All right,
the
there you
Ravens'
go.
ass. We have civil war in my home, so that's all we care about tonight.
I'm rooting for you, Howard, but my prediction is my friends at Godolphin get their first Derby this year with one of their many horses.
Certainly possible. Matt?
Final thought is just to make sure I'm clear. I'm repping betting and boozing tonight, guys.
Nice. I like it. Well, guys, appreciate you coming on. For my wonderful co-hosts, Pete Visco, Paul Halloran, and good friend, and well, he's practically a co-host of the show at this point, Matt Miller. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 37 of Horsin Around, our 2025 Kentucky Future Bet. Tomorrow night, we're changing our schedule. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, Pete, Paul, and I think Paul, but Pete and I for sure will be on to discuss Churchill Stakes Thursday and Friday. And then Wednesday, we have both our shows, Bet and Boozin' and Pacific Horse Players. I will wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Thanks for watching, everyone. Crush your bets in the Kentucky Derby Future Bet 2025. Thanks. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.